Hello and welcome to what will be the final episode of my retrospective look at TT Games LEGO games of the past. Well, at least for now. Now, if this is your first time watching a video from the series, then don't forget to subscribe and also head to the YouTube channel or lifeinbrick.com for the full series. So here we are, episode 27, and there's a sense of synergy to this episode. Way back in the pre-COVID era, back when all was well, way back when I started this series, I began on a special day with what I still believe to be one of the best games in the series. That day was May the 4th, and that game was LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga. I began this series in a galaxy far, far away, and with some wonderful symmetry, I'm ending it there too, thanks to 2022's LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. Despite its fairly recent release compared to the majority of the series, I didn't do an original review for this game back when it came out, so this is my first critical look at the game that dominated my gaming time back in that April. A game that many of us were so insanely excited about and very disappointed when it kept getting delayed. So, strap in, make sure your droids are fully charged and your hyperdrive is working, because we're about to take a trip through the Skywalker family tree. Featuring all 9 of the episodic Star Wars movies, and with some short-sighted person having already given the name The Complete Saga to a game a decade earlier, the Skywalker Saga was poised to be the culmination of TT's LEGO Star Wars franchise. One LEGO Star Wars game to rule them all. Now, before we jump into that, I've done 3 separate videos called Star Wars According to Life in Brick, which tackle the full story in a lot of detail. But for that one person in the world that hasn't seen Star Wars, here's a brief recap of the 9-movie saga. The birth of a boy from immaculate conception leads to a couple of wise men turning up and believing him to be the Messiah. Hang on, wrong story, that one's for Christmas. Start again. Anyway. Short version of the Skywalker Saga. There are 2 types of space wizards, Jedi and Sith. Jedi good, Sith bad. Jedi typically have blue or green laser swords, apart from Samuel L. Jackson who wanted a purple one. Siths have red ones, because red means bad. There are 3 trilogies of movies making up the 9 movies. The original trilogy, episodes 4 to 6, the prequel trilogy, episodes 1 to 3, and the sequel trilogy, episodes 7 to 9. The original trilogy kept things relatively simple, a fairy tale in outer space about a farmer's nephew being recruited by an old friend of his dad's to help a rebellion against the evil rulers of an empire. As the story progresses, we find out that the main big bad is secretly the farmer's dad, epic battles against good and evil, good wins the day, galaxy saved. The prequel trilogy tells the tale of how the farmer's dad became the big bad, with his rise and epic downfall alongside a galaxy at full-blown war. There's also a lot more talking about politics in these movies. The sequel trilogy picks up 30 years after the original trilogy. A fallen empire has been replaced by an evil order which uses the same ship designers and uniform tailors and attempts a modern retelling of the original trilogy with a new generation of heroes, whilst also attempting to expand the mythos. Ultimately, this trilogy as a whole was not universally loved. Most fans blame Disney for this. So, good versus evil, 4 decades of glorious storytelling, hundreds of established characters, and a wealth of worlds, ships, and moonside space stations to explore. How could this not be the greatest LEGO game ever created? Of course, TT Games put their own unique stamp on the story, with every opportunity to mock the beloved franchise taken, whilst also staying true to the source material. It's been a while since I've watched episode 3, but I am pretty certain there wasn't a dance-off between Obi-Wan and Grievous. While some of the comedy is a little bit over the line in terms of silliness, I'm not going to lie, I did prefer the use of comedy in the older Star Wars games because it was a little less slapstick. In general, it works exceptionally well in LEGO form. Basically, it meets the standards we've become used to in LEGO games, and it will make you laugh. Anyway, moving on to level design, as following on a similar design to previous LEGO Star Wars games, each of the movies features its own segregated story path made up of an equal number of levels. In this case, it's 5. Whilst this structure does give you the ability to choose which story to begin with, whether you're playing them in chronological order, release order, worst to best, you choose which trilogy you want to start with. The downside, however, is that you're still restricted at the trilogy level, so you can't just jump into the epic lava battle of episode 3 without having already played through episode 1, 2 and the rest of episode 3 first. As with previous LEGO Star Wars games, each level is designed to play through an important milestone in the story of the episode that you're playing through, with key moments in the saga playable throughout. Where this differs though is the transitions from open world to level. It's a much more natural flow as you work your way from level to level within the open environment, taking part in subtle side quests along the way. This isn't anything new to a LEGO game. Examples similar date back as far as LEGO Batman 2 and LEGO Lord of the Rings, but it's done to perfection here, utilising as much of the diverse open worlds as possible and giving the player a taste of what the post-story experience is going to be. Another big positive is that TT Games have done a great job of not simply remastering stories that have already been told in LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga. Don't get me wrong, there's loads of obvious overlap in the first 6 episodes, but the level designs themselves are very different, the environments are larger in scale, and the goals of each level have evolved. This does, however, have a downside, with some key moments not playable. The earliest example is Qui-Gon's first battle with Darth Maul, as they escape Tatooine. A number of similar things do crop up throughout the game where you would expect there to be an epic playable moment. It turns out to be a cutscene. Another negative around the levels themselves is the length. The levels are short. Very short. You may have spent anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes on the level in the Complete Saga. The average Skywalker Saga level is probably around the 10-minute mark. This in itself shouldn't in any way put anyone off. The seamless integration with the open worlds does certainly make the player feel like they're getting the full experience, but it is noticeable to anyone that's played the Complete Saga in recent years. Whilst the levels themselves are fairly standard in terms of the basic mechanics, at the end of the day, it's a LEGO game. You destroy stuff and collect studs while progressing through a fairly linear environment. But in this case, everything in this game is crisp. It's slightly improved all over the place. The first change you'll notice is the camera angle. Away from the kind of pseudo side-scroller approach older LEGO games had, it's much more polished. It's over the shoulder. It's much more like a third-person shooter akin to the very best. Yeah, the perspective does change to fit the environment, but there's definitely something more mature about this gaming experience. The other thing that has dramatically improved is the close contact combat. The lightsabers you can swing, you can throw them with absolute ease. It just seems like a much more improved experience. Now, we're not talking about combat mechanics up there with the latest Assassin's Creed or Jedi Survivor, but compared to 2016's The Force Awakens LEGO experience, there is a very noticeable improvement. Speaking of which, some of the best things from that game that were added have made an outing here too, including the ability to use blasters while hiding behind walls and barriers. The other thing that has changed here is the collectibles per level. Yes, the infamous mini-kits are still there to collect, and there is a full guide on lifeonbrick.com if you need it, but there's only 5 on each level this time. With less collectibles to worry about, the focus shifts to challenges to complete on each level, 3 per level, many of which you'll get naturally through the normal playthrough. They range from a specific path to take during a level to throwing a certain amount of battle droids off of a platform edge. Personally, I found these a much more enjoyable prospect over the standard solve a puzzle, find a mini kit, and there's a lot of freedom with many of the challenges to how they can be completed. It provided a much better variation of general gameplay. Character selection was one of the biggest annoyances for me when I first started playing this game, but it was only because it's changed so dramatically from the standard pop-up wheel that we've all become accustomed to. Once you get your head around the new UI, it's actually it makes a lot more sense because there are so many characters to choose from. So, who's complaining? Thankfully, the developers have taken the time to categorise the characters rather than just throwing a massive, huge grid in your face with everyone at once. You need a bounty hunter? You can go straight to the bounty hunter section. You want to destroy the universe as a Sith? You'll find one with ease. It's a quick learning curve and one that ultimately benefits the player. Where the game deviates quite a lot, and returning to my earlier comment about this feeling like a much more mature gaming experience by LEGO standards, is the leveling system. It has a pseudo RPG element to it that allows you to increase the powers and abilities of specific character classes. Once you start delving into the realms of the open worlds, puzzles and side quests, these upgrades quickly become exceptionally useful. Now, one staple of the LEGO franchise I've not mentioned yet is the red bricks. Well, there aren't any. They've actually been replaced by data cards found on many of the planets in the open world galaxy. It's pretty much the same mechanic. You solve a puzzle or a quest to unlock a fun and useful ability, but the aesthetic change actually fits more in with the Star Wars universe. Now moving on to the creme de la creme of the Skywalker Saga, the open world galaxy. Now, if you enjoyed the ability to land on different planets and explore those open world environments in the Force Awakens game, then you're in for an insane treat. Pretty much every major and some minor planets mentioned in the movies feature in this game as fully explorable open world environments. The vastness of this game is incredible and there is just so much to explore. If you're going to try and 100% this, make sure you block out a very large amount of time. It's a big one. Now the environments themselves are just as crisp graphically, they're stunningly rendered and they feel very much alive. Just wandering around Mos Eisley or Mos Espa, you feel engrossed in the environment. Coruscant feels like the capital city as you move from the council buildings to the city streets, and the feel of the game just changes. Everything is pristine. Now, of course, take away the stunning environment improvements, the playability of these environments is fairly standardized. You've got side quests, collectible bricks, puzzles to solve, characters to unlock. It's all the standard stuff, just done better. Everything has just been slightly tweaked, slightly improved. It's just a slightly better experience. Now that being said, you're not limited to the planets themselves, as each of the planets actually has a space section in orbit where you can fight alongside good and bad guys, and if you're lucky, a legendary ship will actually make an appearance that you can attack, board and take over. Now that includes, but it's not limited to, the actual Death Star itself. Now, across the game, graphically, LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga has no equal in its weight class. For a LEGO game, this game is one of the most beautifully rendered experiences I've ever had. It is stunning. That in itself adds to the overall enjoyment with those new camera angles putting you right in the thick of the action. Every brick rendered with photorealistic lighting and textures. It's incredible. For a LEGO fan, the experience was brilliant. For a Star Wars fan, the experience was insanely incredible. Absolutely brilliant. Audio wise, and the decision not to use voice audio from the movies, especially the older ones, was definitely a wise move here. Not only were you working with audio clips dating back to 1977, but the variety and quality between the audio and the visual just wouldn't work well. It would have ruined the experience. Adding to that, TT's love of going off script with their cutscenes, it was definitely a good move to bring in new voice actors, and it works. For the most part, the actors brought in to voice the characters do a decent job of recreating the characters without too much deviation to distract, much in the same way as the animated shows of the Star Wars universe did. Music-wise, there's not really a lot to say. I mean, John Williams' scores are legendary and they speak for themselves. They feature throughout the game. If you've watched a Star Wars movie, you know what Star Wars music is like, and it's beautifully used in this game. Overall, LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is everything that a fan of the series would possibly want. It's the culmination of 15 years of innovation and improvements, learning what works and what doesn't. There's more than enough familiarity for anyone to just pick up and go without any trouble, but enough new stuff brought to the table to make it feel like a brand new experience. Have TT Games taken any risks for this game? I don't think so. For the most part, they've played it safe and they've made the best game they can with what they've learned in that time. That being said, this is a much more mature gaming experience than any LEGO game that they've delivered before, with better graphics, slicker combat, improved camera angles, and of course the RPG elements thrown in for good measure. Is this the best LEGO game ever made? Well, that's down to personal opinion. Technologically, yes, in every way, but everyone has their own view. All I will say with some certainty is if you are a Star Wars fan, there is no possible way that you could play this game and come away disappointed. Unless you really, really hate LEGO, in which case what are you doing watching this video? So there you go. LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga and the end of my TT Games LEGO Games Retrospective series. I hope you've enjoyed the whole series. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you to every single person that has supported this series. I have loved doing it. I enjoy LEGO games. I hope my passion for LEGO games has come across during. As I say, I'm very positive about Lego games anyway, but I hope I haven't been too biased in one way or the other, because none of them are truly perfect. They've all got their tweaks, their downsides as well. Anyway, thank you to everyone that's watched. Thanks to everyone that supported the channel. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video. Let me know what your favourite Lego game is. Is it this? Thanks to everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.